Hey, it's Renee with Reset with Renee, and I had a question from someone who follows me on YouTube. They asked what they should do because they have a partner who's going on a healing journey and is not sure if they want to stay married. So I thought I'd answer that right now. I'm never going to tell someone what to do with their relationship, though, by the way, so that's the preface. But really, what I've experienced, I used to do a lot of couples therapy, and what I experienced often as a provider was what I called the drive-through drop-off. And so that looked like one spouse or partner, typically female, wanting to be done with the marriage or the relationship, and they were worried about the other person, typically the man, and so they delivered them to my doorstep, to my office for support as they move through the process. So that's one way that it can look. But other than the drive-through drop-off, you can have someone who is just really in relationship ambivalence. They're conflicted, they're confused. 1 minute they want in, 1 minute they want out. You may or may not know that that's their inner conflict and struggle. But if they've asked you to participate in therapy or coaching or some sort of process to work through all of that, that can be a little bit more reassuring. Like it still feels like they're in it, okay? And then of course you can have someone who is fully committed, but together you guys have determined there's some things that you'd like to address and improve upon. So I kind of had the feeling from the way that this question was worded was that perhaps maybe a separation was imminent. And so I personally don't think that a separation is positive or negative, good or bad. I think it's the way that people enter into a separation that is important. You know, what are the boundaries? What are the ground rules? What are the intentions? What's a predetermined period of time that we're going to give to the separation period? So if you are partnered with someone who's going through something and they're not sure what they want, but you would like to hold on to the relationship if at all possible, or if you don't, if you're like, okay, this is my cue to leave, it's still an invitation to do some self-checks. So it's an invitation to evolve. All right, so I'm going to say either way, check yourself and see where you're at. Look at your relationship. Look at the history. Look at the present moment. Check it with the future. Do a life check. Are you where you want to be in your life development and unfolding? And wherever you see strengths, amplify those. And wherever you see some weaknesses or growth areas, address them. And so when it comes to relationships, if you're doing that sort of self-check and the relationship check, here's a couple spaces to look. One would be, are you awake, aware, and attuned? So are you paying attention? Do you know what's going on? Are you responsive to what's going on? To have a conscious relationship, we need to be present. So awake, aware, and attuned can facilitate that. How are you doing with communication conflict? And what's your capacity for that? So a lot of folks that I've worked with, they'll come to me and say, we need help with communication, or we don't know how to communicate. And they're communicating plenty, but they're not having any resolution for the areas where they have difference or conflict. So the next would be repair and resolution. So when there's been a rupture, when there's been conflict, how have you been able to move through it in a way that honors both parties and have a resolution that's a win-win? And that's a skill set. Not everybody knows how to do that. And then finally, this is not an all-inclusive list, a couple things that were top of mind to answer this question, but the last one would be dreams and desires. You know, if we are in relationships, we want to have an experience of being met, of having fun, of being intimate, of having connection, of having a bigger, better life because we're we're pulling it all together and creating something bigger than we could if we were just on our own. So that being said, when we think about relationships, our long-term relationships, whether that's marriage or not, people are going to change. I was talking with someone this week, and they were wondering why they weren't changing, and we didn't get to talk about it, but I was thinking people change either because they are moved towards growth, they want something different for themselves, so they're going to go after it, or they're moved to change because a pain threshold has been crossed and they can no longer deal with that. And some people hate change, and some people welcome and love it, live off of change. So you can be anywhere on the continuum, but one thing's for certain, change is a part of life, and our lifespan's pretty long. So we are going to keep changing and evolving if we're awake and aware. So whoever you have partnered with for a long-term relationship, you're probably going to have 1,000 of little deaths being with that person. They are going to continue to change and evolve. You're going to continue to change and evolve. Developmentally over the lifespan, there's going to be shifts. And so being able to flow with that is an important way to have a healthy relationship. And one other side note, when I did couples work, a lot of times what I heard, and I've even heard this in like friendships that I have with both men and women, but oftentimes women will get into a relationship and see like the possibility of partnership with someone. They'll see all of the strengths and they'll be like, oof, we can really grow and like amplify this. They might even think that they could change somebody, right? And then men, and this is very global, so sorry for the globalization and the generalization, but oftentimes men are like, I like you just the way you are. Can you just stay that way? Don't ever change. And that's not how life unfolds, right? So to the person who sent me this question, I hope that gave you some food for thought. It is an opportunity, no matter what the other person does, for you to really evaluate what's working and not working for yourself, your connection with yourself, and your connections with others. And if you're not sure and you need some help, for sure, reach out to Reset with Renee. Thanks for listening, y'all. Have a great Friday and a wonderful weekend.